Got it. Fabulous.
All right, fabulous. Hello, everyone. We are extra lucky because I feel like I haven't been able to sit down and talk to the great Melissa Juergens in quite some time. And our 30 minutes has been cut down to 23 minutes because you've had an ordeal. But for everyone who doesn't know us, I'm Sean. This is Mel. She's a wonderful superstar. We don't have much time, but I do need to talk about your impressive CV because not only are you a wonderful clinical practicing dietitian, and you've done lots of wonderful stuff in the clinical space, but you've also gone on to now be a sports dietitian. We've got the Manly Sea Eagles, we've got the GWS Giants netball, GWS Giants AFL. And what am I missing? How else do I describe you? Loving daughter, loving partner to Scotty, a loved team member by all. What am I missing on your CV, Mel, to just talk about your greatness?
That sounds good.
Okay. I didn't miss anything. Tick. All right. I wouldn't want to undercook it. That's for sure. Fair
enough.
Well, thank you for your time. I think the benefits of this conversation will be for the team, as well as the members, as well as anyone else who hears it, just hear a day in the life of you and just your thoughts on being such a young but accomplished, superstar already in early days of your career. So look, the big move out of clinical world has obviously taken you to a much more intense role in sport now. So keen to hear, what is it like working in sport, and can you speak to that crossover? What have you taken from clinical practice of general public and a lot of eating disorder work? How are you taking that stuff into sport, and how has what you've learned in sport come across to enhance your clinical practice as well?
Well, it's great. I love working in sport. As you know, it's been something I've wanted to do since I was about, 16 years old, when I decided I was going to become a dietitian, and was very set on that. And always said to people, I'm going to be a work for a professional sporting team and, travel the country and travel the world with them. And to which many people laughed at me and said, good luck, young girl. And I think I told you this story a couple of weeks back, but one of my first internships that I did as an exercise scientist was working with the NEFL, which now isn't currently a competition, but it's basically the grade below the AFL and the professional level there. So it was for the NEFL at Sydney Uni, and I was working as an exercise scientist, being a trainer that ran water bottles on. And my dad came and watched one of the games there, and he found it hilarious because I ran on with the water bottles like up high and like didn't move my arms. So he just thought it was so funny. I was like running on, and these huge men, I was like passing them water bottles and, trying to make sure they stayed hydrated. This is before I'd even done my dietetics degree. And I remember I left the stadium and Dad said, it was hilarious watching you run the water bottles on. I said, look, Dad, you got to start from the bottom somewhere. And I'm here now as the trainer running water bottles on, but you just wait, I'm going to become the dietitian for a professional AFL team one day. And I was very proud to tell him that I did do that when I got the job at the Giants. So working in sport is great. It's busy, but in all the right ways. And I think for the stage of life that I'm at the moment, I don't have kids. I've got a very loving partner. We're settled. We've got property. Being able to travel the country with elite athletes and spend day in, day out working with people that function at such a high level, not just the athletes that I work with, but then also the staff members that I'm around as well. There is a massive crossover to what you do in clinic because it's an integrated team, which is what Health Fix is all about. So I think that's something that I've learned, and we strongly pushed at Health Fix, that I've been able to add value to all of the different sport teams that I work with, is that I'm constantly wanting to integrate with the doctors, the physios, the trainers, get immersed in and understand more about what their role is, not just I do this and you do what you do, but understand what they're doing throughout the whole process and from, pre-season to in-season to off-season. So that's definitely been a big thing that I've worked through. And with relation to eating disorders, body image is massive in sport across both men and women. So, it tends to be one of the biggest concerns that presents in clinic, but it's definitely something that I work a lot with in a different way with professional athletes. And I definitely see athletes that do have some interesting views on food and what they should eat and how their body should look. And part of that is the sporting world and the expectations that athletes have to be and look, and they're constantly scrutinized on their body composition as well, which there is that performance element there, but it's about finding that happy medium of what do you need to be the best athlete possible, but that's not going to completely deteriorate your mental health.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. And look, I think to what you're speaking before, which is something I'd like to touch upon in terms of integrated team versus working in silos. I think sport gets that that association of like, oh, it's so disorganized, it's so unorganized, it's going, that's why they have to work such long hours and whatnot. Can you speak to how much have you found that is it that just there's so many variables, there's so much collaboration that's required, it's so much real-time data and things changing all the time, i.e. we have to cut this interview short because of your overnight travels last night and then another delayed flight this morning and trying to charter a bus for 50 athletes. Yeah. How much is it there's so much things happening all the time versus there is just not great communication across teams versus it is disorganized? How have you found that part of it, such a fast-moving beast versus disorganized?
I think they're very organized people, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the time that people have plans in place, but things change and we work week to week. So, we've got a team in the AFL, we've got a team of 44 athletes, 5 are in rehab. By next week, we could have 12 in rehab. So how do you adjust and implement, and who do you grab and see, and writing extra programs just comes into play. So I don't think it's a case of disorganization. I think it's just that there's things constantly changing all the time, and you can't predict what's going to happen in a game. With COVID this year, with the flu, we've had athletes that have spent 10 days in bed because they've been unwell with the flu, which probably hasn't happened in, 5 years or so, because flu just hasn't been a big issue. So, there's lots of different variables, but no, I definitely think it's organized. I just think there's a lot to do. In my opinion, AFL is much better staffed than what the NRL is, probably because there's a lot more money in it. So the team's bigger. And so I think that it's just a case of people wanting to do everything. And we have lots of meetings, and I guess when you're with the athlete, everyone wants to be there and involved in the sessions, but then we do a lot of our work outside of being with the athletes in their training sessions.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. And I guess if we can speak to crossing over between sports and still your clinical practice, I imagine there's so much in that as well. Like whilst we might be confined to a 30, 45, 60-minute session, there is just so much between what can happen if you're seeing someone in a week's time or 2 weeks' time. It's not that life is disorganized, it's just that things happen. So in terms of crossovers and clinical into sports world into clinical world, have you seen some cool crossovers? Have you brought stuff from sport into your clinical practice outside of sport?
Definitely. I guess for me, the foundations of eating are realistically the same, irrelevant of what level of exercise that you do. Everyone's an athlete. It's just a different level. So the education pieces and the foundational principles that I work with is quite consistent across the athletes. I just adjust the amount of food or the extra snacking depending on what the exercise loads are, which is quite similar to what I was doing in practice with athletes that I work with in practice. I guess other crossover as well, there's a lot of people sometimes forget that athletes are people. So they have irritable bowel syndrome. We've had a lot of investigations on athletes who have had, gut issues, women with PCOS or who've lost their periods. Like there's lots of different normal people conditions that athletes experience as well. They're not exempt from that. So absolutely the clinical skills I've learned there have come into the work that I'm doing with athletes. And I think that working at that high level and that professional level, one of the big differences again is that their job is to be an athlete. So what a lot of clients struggle with, in clinic is their job is to be an architect or a lawyer or they're a physio or whatever it is their role is. Their job isn't to train, eat well, and recover well. Yeah. So what an athlete can do, it's kind of easier. They don't have the excuses or the barriers of life's getting in the way. With people, it's more about working through what is your specific circumstance and how can we adjust to make that realistic for you. And maybe it takes a little bit longer because there's other factors coming into play. I think as well, being now with 3 different professional sports teams, it's just meant that my book has become more athlete based. So what I'm bringing is probably a better knowledge and understanding of people who are functioning at a higher level of exercise. Even though the foundations are the same, that's probably changed my book a little bit.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah. Tell me, because I think you touched on a really nice point there, in the sense of everyone is essentially an athlete, and it is about the performance demands that's on them, and us as human beings. Yes, it is about getting the right level of exercise, being mentally stimulated, keeping ourselves nourished and whatnot. And a lot of our work can get in actually about removing distractions, or helping people around challenges that come into a healthy way or a good way of living. So coming into clinical practice now, what are you seeing as common problems that are getting in the way, whether it's seasonal, it's winter time, it's cold and flu season, whether it's a little bit of COVID hangovers and people still struggling to socialize, or still preferring to work from home and missing a bit of that socialization or incidental exercise, not cooking at home as much. What are you seeing as those things that get in the way of people leading healthy lives from a dietitian perspective?
The biggest thing is always priorities. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but if your health or eating well and exercising isn't within your top 3 priorities, you kind of can't do it well. And that's not a bad thing, because there's life, there's work, there's, paying bills, there's finance, whatever there is that's coming in the way. But if it's not a priority for you, you can't put the expectation on it that you're going to achieve your goals to the level that you might set. Sure. So, you can still prioritize health and achieve those other things as well. And it's often something that I'm talking about with my clients continuously, is your priorities constantly shift throughout life. Right now, I don't have kids. My life would be very different if I had kids. They'd probably become more of a priority, and something would have to drop off for me. But for me at the moment, health is a priority. So I make time. I plan when I'm going to train. My meals are planned throughout the week. My partner knows how to plan the meals so that when I'm not there on a Sunday, he can do the shop for me and have those things done and available. And I'm forever grateful for him to be able to value that as well. But things drop off for me when I'm focusing on work and health. Like, I don't socialize as much. I don't see my friends as often. I can't go to dinner on a Thursday night because I really want to go to the gym and get my session done. And so, heading into winter, I think that overall, the biggest thing is always your priorities. If you want to get health changes and you want to be a healthy person, it has to be a priority for you.
And then, and do the work, no doubt. Yeah, as you're saying, if it's a priority, because there's enough things that take up your time, isn't there?
Well, I don't believe that if your health is your number one priority, I don't believe you wouldn't get healthy.
Yeah, very true.
Because you'd make choices based off that being the priority.
Yeah, yes, I think so. And we talk a lot about identity at different times, right? In terms of how you see yourself. And a lot of people might say something like that, but they actually can't truly see it. And sometimes we get to help with that. If I can I get you to speak to that a little bit? I know some of the authors that, have given you some great insights and whatnot, but getting people to connect with their true self or their healthier identity and help them bring it up a priority and commit time to it and whatnot. Has there been any great influential books or authors or podcasts or anything there that really resonated with you that maybe directly or indirectly you brought into your practice to help others?
I'd love to say that something springs to mind that's super helpful.
I know you're a Brene Brown lover. I know.
Well, I do love Brene Brown, and I think that she's brilliant. I think that what she talks about and valuing yourself and being vulnerable and not being so hard on yourself is something that could benefit everyone. And I'm always preaching Brene Brown, so she would definitely be up there. Yeah. And around priorities, it's not necessarily a book that I've read, but it's that saying where you can have everything, but not all at once.
Yeah, sure.
And I truly believe that is the case in most situations, because there are so many different aspects of our life to be healthy that we're expected to do. It's a full-time job.
Yeah.
You've got to sleep, you've got to meditate, you've got to exercise X amount of times per week, prepare all your healthy meals, make sure you get 8 hours of sleep, spend time with your family, spend time with your friends, spend quality time with your spouse, make sure that you're saving lots of money, make sure you can afford money to buy property, but then also go traveling because you want to enjoy your youth, make sure you've got kids planned, but don't go too early so you can't afford it. There's so many things we're constantly thinking about in our life. You've got to sit down and go, at this stage of my life, what is important to me? Maybe it's a 4-week period, people go into a uni placement. Your priority then can't be to run a marathon in 4 weeks. Your priority is to do everything that you can to get the best results out of that placement. So does eating well, exercising well, and sleeping well matter? Yeah, it does. Because when you're a healthier version, you'll get through that. But don't start to set a goal that's, to drop 10 kilos or to be able to run a marathon or to be able to double the amount that you can squat in that 4-week period, because it's not what the priority is. That's not the purpose of that week. Women who've just had kids, for the next year of your life, your priority isn't to get into the best shape you've ever been in. It's to survive being a brand new mother. It's okay if your body doesn't look the way that it did 5 years ago. What's important is that you look after your health so that you can look after the health of your baby. And that's what you need to focus on. And then once you've got into a rhythm and a routine, start to invest time into yourself, but don't put an expectation that you have to be the fittest, healthiest, most shredded mum out there within 12 months of having a kid. And it applies in lots of different areas, but they're common ones that come up. So it always comes back to me to priorities and go, what is important? What are you focusing on right now? And be kind to yourself if maybe you need to have a rest day and not exercise, or maybe you've had to have a frozen meal or get light and easy because you haven't had time to mentally prepare. It's okay, but try to understand that when you're your healthiest version, you'll be better at work, at uni, at study, at caring for people, because people function best when they're healthy.
Yeah, I like that. I can see how you get your results. Helping people come to that realization. And, I know a great one in there as well in terms of before you start to add, like whether it's at half marathon or go on that prac or, taking on that great journey of having kids, it's like, okay, now I've got this. I think something that you've mentioned is like, what have I got to subtract? Or what can I not focus on, So look, 5 minutes, I know you got to rush straight off, but I was just thinking, you have a lot of successful cases. I know that your successes have led to your progression and success in your career. Sounds like your fundamental way of intervening with people is like, is health a priority? And if it is, I can help you. Maybe what is that first step that you see maybe is a great winner, or something that has led to a great successful case that you can speak to when people have said, yes, Mel, this is my priority. I do want to improve my health. I'm ready to get started. What is that common thing that people do start with that leads to, a really nice long-term result for people?
Well, as dietitians love to say, it's very individualized.
I knew that.
So I will start with that.
Right, and I take that.
A common, the biggest one, I think, is the behavior. Okay. So, for example, if you're someone who, and it depends where you're starting, but quite common, if you're someone who is getting takeaway really often, or let's go even, you're not even eating regularly, you're very sporadic with your meals, the starting point is, okay, we want you cooking every meal, prepping all of your food, eating 5 times a day, 5 serves of veggies, etc. We're not even thinking about that now. If you're not even eating regularly, my goal for them is I don't care what you eat, but eat 5 times a day.
Okay.
Because you're in a behavior now, and then all we have to do is change what you're eating. But if I'm trying to get you to change what you're eating, the timing that you're eating, and get you to cook everything, it's not going to happen. So I always look at, where do we want you to go? And then let's change the biggest thing, the habit first. And then let's tweak and little bit by little bit by little bit, so that they reflect back in 6 months' time and go, I can't believe that I wasn't eating 5 times a day. I literally can't go without my morning snack.
How do I live without it? Yeah.
So baby steps like that. Hydration's a massive one. Thinking about things at the moment. Wintertime, people tend to always go down on their hydration because it's not hot. So hydration's a massive win. If I can get someone drinking 2.5 to 3 liters of water a day, they never come back feeling worse. They always feel so much better.
Yes.
And a big one that I often go with as well, straight up, is vegetables. Get veggies in at lunch and at dinner, and try and get a cup or 2 cups in at both. And I guarantee you'll feel better, more energized. It'll protect your immune system. And ultimately, if you're eating that amount of volume of vegetables, then your carbs and protein component will naturally reduce. So if there's one takeaway I say to everyone, even if you never come back to see me again, please increase your vegetables, because 5% of the Australian population get 2 serves of fruit in and 5 serves of vegetables. So 95% of people that I'm seeing, it's a guaranteed win. And if the only thing that I do is improve their health and no other goals are achieved, I'm happy.
Nice. Nice, clear message there too. I like it. And eat the rainbow. And I thought eat the rainbow was coming there.
Oh, eat the rainbow, all for that one as well. That's a great dietitian slogan. We'll bring that one in.
That's awesome. All right, Mel, look, so thank you so much for your time. I know it's been fairly haphazard to even get you to turn up on time, and I know you've got to rush straight into 4 o'clock. So thank you for being amazing. Thank you for giving us your time and those insights.
Can I add one last thing?
Of course you can.
One more thing that I would like to say, and I want every single person to take away from today, is please do not think that how you look is a reflection of your worth. Your weight is not a reflection of your worth. The size of clothing that you wear is not a reflection of your worth. You're so much more than what your weight is or what a number on a scale says and what you look like. People like you for you and your personality, not for your appearance. And if they do like you for your appearance, can them. Get them out of your life.
Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome. Very well said, Mel. That's awesome.
Okay.
Have a wonderful afternoon. I'm going to go have my afternoon tea.
Oh, enjoy.
I will. See you, mate.
See ya.
All right.
Oh.